Please like our video and subscribe to RotoWire. Then go to rotowire.com/pod for a free 10-day trial.
Hey everybody, welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast for Tuesday. What today is today? Oh, Tuesday, February 23rd. My head is spinning. I'm Jeff Erickson. I'm here with Fred Zinkie. Fred and I are going to be talking some LABR. We had that draft last week, immediately after our podcast last week, so we got to review what we did. We'll talk a lot about news going on, stuff in spring training, and maybe we'll talk another team today. We'll see what we're our time-wise. I know we ran curiously long last week, so we're going to try to avoid that. But Fred, I'll start off with, do you have any idea how many coat hangers that are unused a couple can accumulate over 35 years in the same house? Because I just learned that this weekend.
What's your best guess? Did you count them, or did you?
No, I'm not that much of a math.
What's your best guesstimate, as the kids say in math these days?
300 to 400.
Wow.
A lot of those unused. You go to the dry cleaners. You get an extra one here, an extra one there. You donate some clothes. They needed to donate more clothes. That was one of the things. I'm talking about my parents. Mm-hmm. I'm working on moving my parents in, so I was back at their house over the weekend. That and plastic bags. If plastic bags and unused coat hangers were new cryptocurrency, they'd be 1%ers.
I'm not into metal coat hangers, so we have all plastics. And if I get a metal one we don't do a lot of dry cleaning. But if we do, I kind of get rid of those. And I use plastic bags in the kitchen garbage, usually, like the grocery bags. So that keeps those from piling up. But yeah, I can imagine how much those would pile up.
Yeah, come on. All your Maple Leaf shirts, they all go on hangers, right? Come on.
No, I'm a big dresser guy, actually, too. I'll fold them and put them in a dresser instead.
Good.
So, yeah, you're talking to a gym teacher, too. I don't have a big use for dress clothes. Like, I have some dress clothes, but let's put it this way. They're used so rarely that they're kept in the guest room, not even in the closet in the bedroom.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah.
Okay, well, banter aside, and I know I'm going to get chastised by Ken Kreitz, our video coordinator, for having banter at the beginning of the podcast instead of hard news.
Sorry, Ken.
Let's jump into it. There wasn't a lot of big breaking news over the weekend, baseball-wise. It's a lot of little stuff, dribs and drabs. We had all the big stuff last week.
Yeah, that's right. Not the big signings seem to be done. There's just dribs and drabs, as you mentioned. Scott and Vlad covered a bit of that, on the Sunday Nighter. But yeah, not more some best shape of your life type things that we try to ignore. Some working on a new pitch things that we shouldn't ignore, but we also shouldn't change someone's fantasy draft value yet on working on a new pitch. So a lot of those things. We were mentioning off air that JD Martinez is offering some more reasons or excuses, depending on how you want to look at them, for his depressing 2020 season. But okay, that's good. He's taken some ownership of it, and I think he's a great bounce back candidate.
I think so too. I think just naturally progress to the mean, as we've said before. That happens too. I feel the same about Javi Baez and Chris Bryant. We'll talk about that because I took them both in LABR. I don't feel super strongly about them, but at the same time, logically, it makes sense. You invest in the players that underperformed last year. Some of those are going to fall off the cliff, but other of those are going to provide a pretty good profit. Because as much as we tell everybody not to rely on on last year's numbers, don't have recency bias, we all do. Whether you look at ADP, whether you look at projections, just in our mind, you're like, oh, it's uncomfortable. I really don't want to have to take a chance on this guy. What if he's really terrible? What if this is the end? Sometimes it is.
It's true, but yeah, when last season was 2 months long, yeah, it's way more appealing. I mean, Martinez, for example, was a second rounder last year. Now you can get him, depends on your league size, but say round 6, 7. As you said, Baez last year, probably a third rounder, maybe slipped into the fourth. Now you can get him round about 6 or so. The discounts are big. Gleyber Torres has dropped a couple rounds. Gosh, he's 24. He's 24. He had 2 bad months last year, and he's dropped a couple rounds. So if you're willing to buy in, you can pretty much have an all bounce back roster on your fantasy team this year just by drafting all of these guys anywhere from 2 to 4 rounds later than they went a year ago. Would that work? I guess we'll know in a few months because it's such an unusual set of circumstances. But it is a viable strategy to say that last season was so short that unless you saw, first of all, an injury that could be a long-term problem, or a major skills change, that you were already maybe possibly worried about, that other than that, you're just going to throw it out the window and go back to your 2019 into 2020 rankings.
Yeah. I mean, you could do this even in the first round. If you have the 8th pick, you could take Christian Yelich almost every draft. And say, okay, well, I'm not, obviously I'm not getting a whole round discount, but that's the equivalent. Going from 1 to 8 is a big drop.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, last year, Yelich top 3 pick in basically every league. And yeah, as you said, now you can get him late first, doesn't slip into the second. Oh, his ADP's around 12, so I don't play a lot of 12 teamers, but 12 team, yeah, he slips into the second. So, but it's really tough because there's also these guys who are exciting. Like, I'm not talking about the Christian Yelich phase of your draft. Well, now you got Shane Bieber up there who crushed it last season, right? Now you got Trey Turner up there ahead of him who crushed it last season. Juan Soto and guys like that who keep ascending. And, a year ago, at this time, you would say, oh, I'd way rather Yelich than Juan Soto. I'd yet rather Yelich than Trey Turner. Well, now it's seems like a no-brainer that you'd rather the other guys. If somebody wants to throw last season out, you could just go back to when we all wanted Yelich over Juan Soto, Trey Turner, Shane Bieber, et cetera, Jose Ramirez, Trevor Story. Recency bias is still a thing. But at the same time, when you break down Christian Yelich, the skills were a lot worse last year. This wasn't just like a BABIP drop or something like that. His strikeout rate ballooned and his hard contact rate went down. Like bad things happen. So you have to decide, would he have turned it around?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And I think I'll tell you, my next article, you gave me a great idea. I'm just going to write the all last year's bums team.
Yep.
And just every round. Okay. Christian Yelich had a terrible year last year. I'll get him at. I'll have to presuppose a draft position to make it work, but I think I can pull this off. I think this could be a lot of fun.
Yeah, an all 2020 bums team. Yes, and figuring out put yourself say in the middle, pick 8, and see what you could craft for a roster of all guys who either stunk last year or Strasburg, Yordan Alvarez types who just were injured and were a no-go last year.
Yeah, I've already Mitch Garver is going to be on that team for sure.
Yeah,
I can think about that. I mean, you can just think of these names right away, because we all had them too. Yeah. Here's the thing, and you know what? I've been saying how I'm not going back to Jose Altuve. He'd fit on this list too, but there are people that will. But my thought is he could be very well beyond the Dustin Pedroia career path. MVP to injured and, not the same player. And that's always the problem, because especially second baseman about his age, that's when they often turn. And then there's nowhere for them to move. That's one of the problem with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have to take them case by case, right? Do you believe Nolan Arenado's bouncing back, right? Like you can believe in Jose and Javier Baez and not believe in Chris Bryant, for example. It doesn't have to be an all or nothing approach, but I like this idea as an article. This is how you could make a draft that last season people would have looked at it and been like, no way you came away with all of those players in one draft. Yeah. And then this year you're like, I'm just taking them at ADP or around ADP or a little bit before it.
That's right. Right. I'm going to write that up tonight if I have time.
Great idea.
Catching up on a lot of things, but it's all good. Okay. Yeah. Some little things. Shin Shoo-Choo, my favorite 1 year only red. I'm a Reds fan. I mean, everybody knows that by now, but he was that 1 year in Cincinnati was magical. He was so good with the Reds, like a 420 on base, hit for average, hit for a little bit of power. Was perfect at the top of that lineup, fit in well with the team. Everybody loved him. I wished him very well. I was happy he had some success in Texas too. I knew we weren't going to be able to keep him, but I was so, love Shin Shoo-Choo. Big fan of him, and happy for him to go to, that he gets to go back and play at home. Wish he would play in the majors in one more year, but gets to go play in Korea to finish out his year. I'll become an SK Wyverns fan now.
As if you weren't already.
Yeah, who isn't, right?
It's amazing that you said he's your favorite 1 year red when a 1 year red. Well, I guess Trevor Bauer isn't a 1 year red. I can't say that. He's not 1 year red. He's a 1 year and
1 year and
2
change.
months.
Yeah.
1 year and change. Doesn't count. Doesn't qualify. Good, because we don't like him anyways. We like Choo. I said on Twitter last night that I think I rostered Choo in the last like 10 to 12 years as much as any on as high a percentage of my team as anyone did. It was at the point where if I left a draft and didn't have Choo, like I wondered what was wrong. Like, did I screw up or did someone else just really reach for him or something? Like, did I miss him? But I rostered him a ton. I thought when his prime, he was a great 2020 guy who got on base a lot. So the runs were really high. And then as he got older, he was kind of more like a 2010 guy, still got on base a lot. Someone asked me on Twitter to compare a current player to Choo, and I said to me that guy is Michael Brantley. A little bit different, it hits for a little more average than Choo, but I think of Michael Brantley is just such a good hitter, not a fantasy star, but in his prime, a 2020 guy. Now Brantley's a little more of a 2010, and now more maybe like a 20 and 5 guy, but hits for average, great plate skills, like he's that to me that I love those types of guys. Like I say, when Choo was in his prime, like round 5, 6, 7, and later on you could get him around 15, 16. And you hardly ever regretted, other than the 1 year with Texas where he was hurt a lot, you never really regretted taking Choo.
No, perennial AL Tout Wars because in OBP league too there
yes.
for me. So perennially on my team there. He was faster than Brantley, especially he maintained that speed longer in his career.
That's what it is, yeah. Yeah, Brantley was briefly up and getting up like 17 steals, things like that, but they couldn't hold it. Right. Choo, because Brantley had more injuries earlier. Choo held it a little longer. And it really impressive, like as an athlete. Like Choo in 2019, it stole 15 bases. Last year he stole 6. Like in 33 games. Like if last year plays out, he might have stole 15 again or more. Yeah. So like he was not 40, but getting up there, late 30s, and still putting up 15 steals. Like that's really impressive. And still getting on base. He's
a rare Korean player that came over as a minor leaguer too. He had to climb the ladder with the Mariners and then the Indians. He had to work to get his playing time. It wasn't like one of these big transfer fee guys. He had to really work his way through everything.
Yeah.
But appreciation for his career. I'm a big fan. Hope he has a good campaign back home. Tyler Clippard is an Arizona Diamondback. Hey, great. Torey Lovullo loves to mess with us when it comes to his closer. They already signed Joakim Soria earlier. He's in the mix. And Stephen Crichton was the guy at the end of the year last year. But, he was only for a week, basically. There's no real incumbent here. Who do you have as the closer?
Well, I have Soria like a lot of people, but I do. So some comments when they got to training camp by Lovullo kind of have me now taking a step back and downgrading Soria's projected save total. He said Crichton will get a chance to compete for that closer's job. That could be lip service and just wanting to make it seem equitable. It's funny, when Clippard first signed, I kind of rolled my eyes, and then I took a better look. Like 2 years ago, 2.90 ERA, 0.85 WHIP. Last year, 2.77 ERA, 0.88 WHIP in both seasons of strikeout per inning. That's really good. Like, there's no reason to say like you can't look at those numbers and say, oh well, Soria is be a way better closer than Clippard. Soria has more save experience, although Clippard has 68 career saves. He's had some saves. Like Lovullo could just mess with all of us and confuse the ninth inning a lot. But when you look at the numbers from Soria and the numbers from Clippard, other than maybe some people don't like that Clippard's a bit of a fly ball home run guy, so they don't like that about him, but he kind of gets the job done. Like his career ERA is 3.13. He probably gets the job done just as well as Soria does.
Probably, and he's pitched in Arizona before, and now he gets to pitch there with I guess it was a shorter period of time than I thought. I thought he was like a multi-year Diamondback, but it was only part of one season in 2016. Wow. I remember him as a Diamondback. That's so weird. I know he's been a lot of places, but he's like Johnny Cash. He's been everywhere, man. But sorry, really bad joke. I gotta stop pointing out my bad jokes.
7. I'm counting. I think he's been on 9 teams. That was just a quick count. Getting ready for the next topic.
It's not quite the Todd Zeal of our generation. You remember how many teams he played for? I swear it was like 14. I think.
Yes. Who's the guy? Edwin Jackson. He's the one who kind of trumps them all.
Yeah. Trivia. Yeah. I wonder who has the most. I'm sure that's easily look upable in this device I have that's in front of me.
It's either Jackson or it's at least Jackson from like the last 20 years.
Or at least among pitchers, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Here's the thing about Clippard too. Strikeout rate is declining a little bit. It was 29.8 way back, not way back in 2018, 26.6, then 26.5 last year. And then swinging strike rate is also going down. He doesn't throw that hard. Average fastball is 89.2. So it's kind of declining.
But he's still getting. But the thing is, he's still getting the job done, and without
he doesn't walk people.
He kind of regressed, like 2017ish. He kind of regressed, but then he's built himself back up.
Yep.
I don't think you draft, for the fantasy slant of this, I don't think you draft Clippard in a mixed league. If you want to throw $1 at him in an NL only, I think that's fine, but I think that's it. In maybe 2, probably 1 actually. For me, the takeaway is like for my projections now, I have Soria at like 15, 16 saves. I can't put him at like 25 as long as the manager's saying open competition. And Crichton and Clippard are reason, like it's not like there's no one else there. Like those guys are reasonable competitors. I can't put them to 25 until maybe in mid-March I can do that, but right now I can't. So, and when I can't do that, it means I can't draft him because someone in my draft's going to project him for 25 and take him. Right. And I get it. He could do that, but
I started off 15 for Soria, 18 for Crichton actually, and I think a couple for Ginkel. Laces out. No, that's wrong name.
Yeah.
But it sounded like sort of thing there. But yeah,
I may go like 17 for Soria, 10 for Crichton, 4 for Clippard. It doesn't, and then I just leave the last few Diamondbacks. I don't think the Diamondbacks are going to produce 40 saves anyways. But then the last few saves are just kind of random.
Lavallo loves to change his closer too. I mean, if you've ever had Archie Bradley, you know this.
Yeah, this is also probably not a postseason team. So if any of these guys are really rolling, they could get traded at the end of July. Also. Yeah,
absolutely.
So
both Soria and Clippard are, and that's why they are probably a better chance to close. By the way, because they want to be able to trade them. They don't want Crichton to be expensive. Davinsky's on that team too. He could also factor in just a little bit if you.
Yeah, you never know. It's like we talked about with Richard Rodriguez on the Pirates a couple weeks ago, where if somebody's getting saves on a team that's definitely not going to the postseason. Like they're like when you project them, you have to build that in your projection. Like I can't project Richard Rodriguez for 33, 35 saves because I just know that if he's going along doing well, he'll be a trade candidate in July. So I have to factor that in.
Right. I'd agree with that. Absolutely. Yeah. Let's talk Mariners. That's actually the big story. We probably could have led with that one there with Kevin Mather and his comments and all that's the follow-up to that is interesting because once you get someone on the record, I guess it's not technically on the record because he didn't know because he's dumb and didn't realize someone would record his comments. But once you get someone saying out in public, open, what every team has been doing for years, it's now like, okay, it was the kind of the understanding is you never acknowledge that you were limiting player service time. You're limiting player service time when the guy says it. And the general manager's like, why are you doing this to me? But Kelenic deserves to be up. Is there really a baseball case for him not to be up?
No, I don't think so. I guess the only baseball case the Mariners can make for him not being up would be what a fiasco last season was, and that maybe he could just doesn't have to make his debut after such a long, after not having played last season. So you give him a month just because we don't want him to, if you wanted to give him we don't want to bring him up and have him fall flat on his face. So because he's going to be a long-time star for us. So, and we're not going to make the playoffs anyways.
True.
So let's tuck him away in AAA for a while and just let him get rolling. And once he has a 7-game hitting streak type thing going or hits 3 homers in a week, we'll bring him up and it'll just help us just because of how unusual last year was. But let's be honest, if he's hitting 350 in spring training or something, he should be up. I guess the other reason they could say that Kyle Lewis and Mitch Haniger have 2 of the outfield jobs for sure, and Haniger should get a chance to be a starter again if he's healthy. Lewis is part of their future. Maybe they want to give Jake Fraley one last look. I mean, he was supposed to get a look last year and then couldn't do it. If he has a nice spring, maybe they can say, hey, we want to give this guy one last look before we turn it over. But really, Kelenic is good enough to be up. My takeaway from the Mariners comments and the fallout, I don't think it's going to spur them to bring Kelenic up for opening day unless he signs a long-term contract. But this story is pretty infamous now, I guess. I wouldn't say famous. It's infamous now.
Right.
they're going to look like even bigger jerks, even with Kevin Mather gone from the organization. They're going to look like even bigger jerks if Kalenic is in the minors in June. So
that's the thing.
I think the pressure's on to bring him up by the end of April now.
Right. To do the 3-week thing instead of the 2.5 month thing. I think that makes a whole lot of sense. I tend to agree with you on that. I mean, Jose Marmoleos, he spreads it around. He's got to play. But Ty France, he's got to play, of course. But no.
A lot of people like Ty France as a potential like late blooming power bat, but none of them have to play like Kalenic. But I do get that Kalenic can play in AAA for a while these other guys get a little bit of a look and everything. Bottom line is, I think from a fantasy perspective, Kalenic's going to be up by the end of April. That's going to give him time to get 500 plate appearances, maybe 400. We'll see, like just roughly 450 at bats, 470 at bats. Like maybe they get really aggressive and he gets 500 at bats, and bring him up like right after the deadline. But I don't think these comments will be that they'll be embarrassed enough by the comments to just let him be there on opening day. But if you look at Chris Bryant, the infamous rookie year case, he had 559 at bats with a great walk rate in his first career, or his first season. Like if Kalenic could get 559 at bats, he'd be quite the fantasy value with where he's getting picked right now.
Still cost him the same year of service though that it would cost Kalenic. Yep. That's the thing that's frustrating. Well, and you lived it. I mean, you're in Toronto. I mean, the whole Vlad situation and all the comments made by the GM that we just stop talking, stop. Yeah. These empty, justifications for it. It just makes you sound worse. And as it turns out, Vlad probably does need to work on his defense. How
about you're right? How about that Vlad was one that Chris Bryant is the famous case for this rule being ridiculous,
right? Or Trout and Harper coming up in May on the same day, by the way.
Right. Yeah. But Vlad, you're right, is an interesting like counterpoint to it in the sense of now Vlad's so young when he came up, but at the same time, like everybody for a long time was like, his bat's ready. Well, they finally bring him up. His bat's been fine, but it wasn't amazing. He hasn't crushed it. And the Jays, when they kept him in the minors, they did say fielding was a problem with him. And here we are. And he's already moved over from third base to first base, and now he's fighting to try to get back to third base. But fielding isn't, and he wasn't a good first baseman last year. Not surprising. He kind of thrown into it last minute, but he hasn't been a good fielder. So it's funny when the Jays said he wasn't coming up because he wasn't a good fielder, and that was part of it. Everybody rolled their eyes. Well, he actually isn't a good fielder.
Yeah, so, and he's at first base. Although, have you heard any? They're going to try him at third in spring training. He has slimmed down. These are positive things. Yep. I mean. The fact that he needed to slim down at age 21 is kind of scary, but
the Jays the new Jays management team likes player versatility as much as any team, which is the new way. So I could see a scenario where Biggio plays 4 games a week at third and Vlad plays 2, and then Vlad plays 4 games a week at first base, and Biggio, because he's so versatile, plays a game at second and a game out in center field, and I could see them, if Vlad holds up his end of the bargain, giving him some starts at third, enough to keep him fantasy eligible for us, but I don't see him being the third baseman.
I don't either. Yeah.
But that might keep him happy. He might like that if they're like, hey, a couple of days a week you play third, the rest of the time you play first. Yeah.
I mean, if you can get 10 games in there, that'd be pretty handy to get that third base eligibility back, after losing it this year, but we'll see about that. But Kalenic's ADP, 218. On March 20th, that's Tout Wars weekend, Tout Wars Saturday. It is going to be what?
140, 150, 140. Tout Wars weekend. Yeah, I'll say 140, 150. What do you think?
I think that's aggressive. I think it'll be more like 180, but I don't know.
So I just did a quick look. He was basically pick 190, 193, I think, in our LABR draft last week. So I'm going to say
was
it moves
Clay
up.
That took him?
No, it's Tim Mccloud.
What am I
Tim
talking
Mccloud.
About? Tim Mccloud. That's okay. So Tim Mccloud is an automatic minus 30 though. Whatever, he.
True. True. So I
was it on the away? I'm pulling it up actually.
Yeah.
Now.
There's so many. The big variable with Kalenic will be in a month or 4 weeks, or I guess like not quite 4 weeks till our Tout weekend now, or it is, not quite 4 weeks, which is awesome. But anyways, just thinking that. But it'll be how he's doing in spring training will obviously impact that. What I was going to say is I could see in the NFBC main event his ADP being like 140, because that's a bit more of a swing for the fences type event, right? Where you're like I think I could see managers being like, I'm going to take Kalinchak, hope I get 550 at bats, and he's a 2020 player right out of the gate. Because you're aiming, guys are swinging for that grand prize. I could see it being a little more measured in a Tout Wars draft that weekend.
Right. I could see that too. Main event is also, I mean, NFBC is a little different because it's harder to stash guys, I feel like. Because when guys get injured, you have to hold them. Whereas in Tout, just throw them on your IL. Especially in a mixed league, you can pull that off. And in a 15-team main event league, it's harder. But we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that, I mean, I think it could rise. And we'll see what sort of spring he has. Julio Rodriguez, I don't think he's, even if he kills in spring, he's behind. Because he's coming off injuries and all that. I mean, but then again, he could arrive quicker than expected too.
Yeah, it's possible. I wouldn't draft him. I think it's just if he arrives, it'll be a big fab thing. We'll be talking about him one weekend as the big pickup that week. Right. I think Kalinchak I would draft. I'll also say league size would matter to me a little bit with Kalinchak too. So shameless plug, if I was in, say, the RotoWire Online Fantasy Baseball Championship 12-team leagues, I would be even more aggressive going after Kalinchak because the waiver wire, while I'm waiting for him, right? The waiver wire is going to be right. And it's something with an overall. So I'm going to swing for the fences in a league like that. And I'm not that excited to finish third in my league in that one. And, maybe try to get my money back type thing, like you might in some leagues. Whereas in an online championship like that, I want to swing for the fences and try to get into the overall conversation. And Kalinchak might help me do that. And like I say, with the 12-team format, much more likely that I can just grab a boring veteran on the waiver wire, all the way until Kalinchak's ready.
Let's just say that I'm doing Beat Jeff Erickson tomorrow for the 12-team RotoWire Online Championship. Plug off of a plug, and that he'll be in my matrix. That's for sure. I'm not guaranteed that I'll get him because other people can like him too, but certainly someone I'm willing to pull the trigger on at the top, closer to the top end of his range. I'd agree with all of that there. Let's see. Do we got any more newsy items? Tommy La Stella projected to hit leadoff on an Angels lineup that not the Angels, Giants lineup. It's scored some runs last year. Not bad of a lineup. They're trying to, they think they can win a little bit here. I think a lot of things kind of went right for them offensively last year though, Fred. I might be a little skeptical this last the long haul, even though I'm a Yastrzemski guy, I'm a Dickerson guy. Where are you on La Stella?
So I love La Stella, the player. I think everyone who understands baseball statistics loves these guys like La Stella who can get on base like 37% of the time. And I even think he's a cool leadoff fit because of that. Mm-hmm. So when I saw the news, I was like really excited. I went over my projections and I was like, hey, I got to get La Stella up on my list a little bit. And then I looked at him more and I was like, I just can't. Like, there's no category juice there at all. Like, we're talking about someone who's hit more than 5 home runs in a season once in his career and has stolen more than 2 bases once, or sorry, more than 1 base once, and he stole 2 many moons ago. I know he hasn't had a season with a ton of plate appearances, but even a full season from La Stella looks something like 15 homers and like 4 steals, like that's it. So I just can't get that excited about it. It's also like with it looking like there's no DH in the NL now, the leadoff spot's not an RBI spot unless you're a really good power hitter and you're going to drive yourself in about 30 times, and La Stella's not. So like I could see him being like a 50 RBI guy from there. So no steals, 50 RBIs, 15 home runs. And he's also such a walker, and in most leagues aren't OBP leagues. He could hit 280 for you. That's great.
Right.
Yeah. He's replacement level in a 15-team league, and I barely draft him in a 12. He's a bench guy in a 12 to me.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, I'm with you. I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to have a lot of the Stella, and
I just can't.
Yeah.
There are always middle infielders at that point in the draft who could get me some categories who I would rather take. Like there's guys who can hit me 20 homers, or guys who might be even like 10-10 guys. Like, even like an Andrelton Simmons could get you 10 homers, 10 steals or something. I don't know. And you can get him 100 picks later than Stella. So
you can get him more than it. He went undrafted in mixed labor. Andrelton Simmons did.
Wow. Yeah. So, and I mean, yeah, the one thing that's nice for Stella, I guess, is he can play second, and that's not quite as plentiful. Like Simmons, right. I find I would just, there's so many shortstops. When I hear Simmons when undrafted, I'm like, oh, I must have screwed up. But then I look back at my team and I'm like, no, I actually have too many shortstops, like a lot of my teams so far. So, yeah, I just think with Stella, he'll be a guy who, Stella will be a guy who goes on and off waivers all year in 12 teams, I think. And he'll be a guy who in a 15 team, you draft him and you keep him all year, but you're using him as an injury replacement. Some weeks he's on your bench. Yeah, I can't, there's just not enough category juice there to make it like worth a big breakout.
Quickly,
he also gets hurt all the time.
I'm sorry?
I said he also gets hurt all the time. That's a big
also
problem
true.
Too.
All right, quickly, one more news item, and it's not really news. James Karinchak. Terry Francona said that Karinchak will get the chance to vie for the team's closing job in spring training. I know Karinchak's big goal this spring is to be pitching at the end of the game. We've got to see how our bullpen looks as it starts to come together and what makes our best bullpen. So it's not saying he won't close. It's not even saying that there's a reason to doubt it, but he just doesn't want to give him the job. Does this drop him at all for you? It doesn't for me.
So the reason it doesn't drop him for me is that I wasn't all in on him as a closer already. Okay. I have him around 20 saves. That's probably a little low. I should probably be a little higher than 20. But I've just heard these rumors, and this isn't the first time. Like Francona's comments aren't the first time I heard this. And to show that I put my money, or since Twitter likes to discuss with things like our LABR draft, not my money, but my reputation, where my mouth is. My round 29, because we only go 29 deep in LABR. Round 30, I would have totally taken Andrelton Simmons. I can say that now.
Yeah.
We only go 29
I was
deep in LABR.
so there. I saw that as an inefficiency. I just needed one more round.
I just needed one more round. My round 29 pick was Nick Wickron.
Last player in the draft, Mr. Irrelevant.
Yeah, so that was my last pick. Just on the off chance, like he's had 2 nice years in a row. I've heard him mentioned as a possible saves alternative to Karinchak. If they wanted to, I don't know, maybe suppress his future earnings by not using him as the closer, or help their own team by using him in Karinchak in the high leverage situations and sharing the closer's role, I think Wickron could be a guy. He got 4 saves back in 2019 for them. He could be a guy who shares in the job. So I think the odds are very high that I'll cut Wickron on the first waiver run.
Sure, like any 29th round pick.
Yeah, the difference between drafting LABR in mid-February and say drafting Tout in late March, I figured Wickron is someone who will either have absolutely no value to me on opening day or a lot of value, one or the other. If he were to be named closer, that would be amazing. Whereas Andrelton Simmons and the guys like that I passed up, like I know what Andrelton Simmons' value is going to be on opening day, and it's rosterable but barely rosterable.
I mean, relief pitchers. I mean, it's all about the role. I mean, let's face it. Mm-hmm. I mean, with the exception of like you have an extraordinary skilled guy like Devin Williams. Yeah, you don't. It's either you get the saves or you don't. Where are you on Devin Williams, by the way? Are you willing to draft him around his ADP?
Not even close.
No,
so I'm
even though my projections say I probably should think about it.
Yeah, I'm of the Scott Pianowski mindset on this, at least mostly. Not quite the same as Scott. So Scott plays a great point where like he said like your goal shouldn't be to draft Devin Williams. It should be to find this year's Devin Williams. Mm-hmm. And you can so you're hitting the waiver wire hard at the beginning of the season. I like to roll middle relievers right from opening day. So I wouldn't mind drafting some possible Devin Williams types late in my draft, or just some good middle relievers. I've never been good about drafting a reliever who can't get saves where Devin Williams is going, like in the middle rounds of a draft. Like in a 15-teamer, he's going like round 12, something like that, right. 13. Like, no, like for me, no way. Like I can get good hitters at that point in solid starting pitchers. I just can't do it. I would rather wait. Just take like Chris Martin or something like that, like 150 picks later, who probably has a better chance to close and maybe isn't quite as good as Devin Williams, but is still really good. And also the way these relievers kind of sometimes come and go, like Yeah, I don't know. Like you said, your projections say that maybe you should consider him even at a projection of 1 or 2 saves.
But that's also because he's got ludicrous ratios too, and
Right.
he has to repeat that in strikeouts, obviously, and you have to have it active every single week to get the benefit of those stats. That's the tricky part about him. So that you capture every win he gets. Didn't he have like 5 or 6 wins last year? I mean, that in a shortened season, that's gold.
It is,
and so that's where probably is the difference. And let's keep in mind, we're talking about pitchers theoretically going fewer innings, starting pitchers going fewer innings. That still might have some currency. It goes without saying, by the way, NL only leagues, of which you are a defending champ of one of them, rumor has it, that's a different story, perhaps.
Yep, I could see. Well, in an NL only league, I'm going to accumulate far fewer innings, which means Williams is going to have a much greater impact on my ratios, which is good. Also, saves are harder to come by in an only. So, so I could draft Williams in an only and almost count him as one of my starters. Yeah. Just like a little bit of a lower innings and strikeouts total. Where he's going in a mix, so I just pulled him up. He went in round 12 in our LABR draft. You can still get actual closers at that time who are obviously worse pitchers. I won't count Trevor Rosenthal, who went after him because Rosenthal hadn't signed with the A's at that point in time. But he went around after Colomé, around after Kimbrel. He went before Richard Rodriguez, long before your steal of Jordan Hicks, which we could talk about later.
We will. Yes.
So I don't know. At that point in the draft, I just can't. There's starters I like around there, like Zach Eflin went there, Marco Gonzalez went there. Some sharp drafter picked him. So Dinelson Lamet went after Devin Williams, and I thought that was a great pick by Scott, and we were all nervous to pull the trigger on Dinelson Lamet.
Oh, I couldn't do it, and as soon as he did, he did.
I had a lot of starting pitching at that point, so that's my excuse. I just didn't need the risk with what I'd taken 3 in a row by round 5. So, sure. But anyways, I'm not taking Devin Williams at that point, right. But he's going there in every draft.
Right. We'll talk a little bit more about this draft coming up. I know we've hinted at it, but we'll break down our respective teams. But first, a little business to take care of. Ottoneu Fantasy Baseball is the next level fantasy baseball challenge you've been looking for. Experience a year-round dynasty competition with deep rosters. Accumulate prospects to lead your team in the future or to move for a superstar at the trade deadline. Keep your baseball mind engaged in the offseason with trades and arbitration. Learn about why everyone who plays Ottoneu becomes addicted at Ottoneu Baseball. That's O-T as in Tom, T-O-N-E-U baseball.com. Ottoneu, better fantasy baseball. I can attest to it. It's a great game. I play in one league. And they do great customer service, too. I know Niv Shah, who runs Ottoneu, great guy, but he's always very hands-on with his customer support too, so we can totally vouch for them. Good company, good game. I highly recommend it if you want a new challenge. We're gonna break this into 2 parts. If you're doing the video thing with us here, next coming up, LABR review.
Please like our video and subscribe to RotoWire. Then go to rotowire.com/pod for a free 10-day trial.